I'm going to making notes here in case anybody has questions. Today we're going to be doing a travel Q&A. I've got my coffee. It's, oh gosh, I don't even know, 7 o'clock here. I'm in California, and of course I have this not so perfect setup. Excuse me. And of course, as soon as I go live, I start choking. Um, so I'm in my backyard because it is so far a beautiful day. But we do have issues with gnats, and I noticed I forgot to close my back door. So one moment. My dogs are hovering around, wondering what's going on here in my outdoor studio. So today I'm going to do some talking points. What I did is just print out a list of things to talk about, and then I'm going to add to it right now because what I wanted to talk about is travel documentation, passports, visas, immunizations, what's required when you travel, and then let's talk about solo travel, um, travel insurance, gratuities, U.S. citizens, and non-U.S. citizens. So majority of my most recent travel has been road trips, or we did do a cruise September 2024 that was to Alaska, and it was amazing. My goal is always to try to travel some more. So what I'm working on is I have my TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I even have Facebook. I'm a little bit less active on Facebook, but I'm trying to keep active on all of the platforms. Some are easier to post on while we're on the road, and others are not. So, like, one thing I'd love to edit on my laptop, but then I can't post to Instagram unless I do a voiceover. But the posts on Instagram are typically shorter, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time doing voiceovers in the edit and then only using that for one platform, because I also like to use the available music that's on the other platforms. So, like if I'm doing a short on YouTube, I want to use the video or the music that's available on that platform. If I'm doing a shorter content on, excuse me, on TikTok, I like to use that music. I do edit in some captions and titles and text sometimes, but all of that is kind of like a work in progress because the main goal is travel, and I want to present the different destinations to everybody rather than just focusing so much on the edit that it gets away from the time that we're able to travel and provide that presentation to whoever is interested in watching. So I follow a few content creators that mostly do cruising, but then I also follow some that are um, more showing the availability and safety and stuff for LGBTQ travelers, solo travelers. I follow a lady, Wobbly Wendi. She has MS, so she talks about her challenges with traveling with MS, and she's actually really awesome. I'm going to write that down because um, I want to include her link, Wobbly Wendy. And so I mostly follow her on TikTok, but she might have other platforms, so I'll check those out and add those. So I think what they say is we'll put that in the show notes. I know this isn't a podcast, but okay, so let's talk about travel insurance. I was researching because typically we do not travel that much far away from home. So we might take a road trip or just go to a local place. So that would be taking a road trip, but more locally. So it might be something that's 20-30 minutes away. We wouldn't typically have travel insurance for that. And one thing that I did read on one of the policies is they have a certain destination or certain distance that is considered travel. So if you're buying a policy that is for one trip, you want to check that out. Check on what is the restriction for distance. And I'm going to write that down too because I can add a little bit more. Oh, the wind's kicking up. I can add a little bit more in the description to give details on what else I might find regarding distance. And then I also noticed that, okay, so pertaining to a one trip policy, you want to make sure what are your limits, what are the processes for claims, and what are the restrictions. And what I'm talking about there is I was looking more deeply into the travel insurance, and it said a certain limit per person per trip, and then a certain limit per person per claim, I think was the verbiage. So when you're looking at your travel insurance and you're comparing the different companies, the different offerings, make sure you're comparing apples to apples. One may seem to be cheaper, but it's actually not offering you as much coverage. And I'm noticing I am not looking great, but hey, this is me. This is how I look when I travel. So, okay, so then the other thing is, let's see, travel insurance. Sometimes you can, if you're traveling a lot or you're planning to travel a lot in one year, you can purchase an annual policy. And again, you want to look at your limits and make sure that the annual policy is going to cover you for what you are expecting it to cover you for. You don't want to end up with one trip that has a claim and then that's going to negate the sorry, my dog is over there doing something. It's going to negate the opportunities to use that policy on future trips. All right, so let's see. Nice cup of coffee, great way to start the day. Another thing you want to make sure that you're aware of is what is required for your claims. Are you going to need to submit a letter, receipts? You definitely will need to have proof of what your loss is, but determine ahead of time what kind of documentation. If you're going to be having a claim regarding your air delay, talk to the agents at the airport. Hey, I'm going to be making a claim on my travel insurance because this now has been a 2 hour delay. Or, what is the requirement from your travel insurance? Excuse me. Will a 2 hour delay qualify as a reason to make a claim? Will a 4 hour delay? What is the threshold? What because you want to maximize this insurance that you've purchased, but then also look at what the limitations are on your claim. Because if you make a claim for, say, the 2 hour delay, but then later, and then you've already used that portion of the insurance, which I'm not saying that is actually how it works, but just know how it works. And then look at your whole scenario. What are your time limits for making the claim? What are the requirements for making the claim? And then what is the documentation needed to satisfy proof of what happened and submitting the claim. You see my Disney Cruise Lines shirt. This was from, I think, one of our first Disney cruises. We've only been on 3, which I understand is a blessing. That is a huge thing. And that was all me. My husband and my kids did it for me. But one of our first Disney cruises, I did this. And then now the cost is like so ridiculous. We just can't do it right now until we have some other sort of extra income. But we live in Southern California, so extra income is few and far between. So let's see, what is the next topic? Solo travel. So I have a lot of people asking about solo travel. Is it safe? Is it a good idea? Is it more expensive? So definitely look into solo travel. There are a lot of options. Solo travel on cruises is very popular. I would say it's very safe. Just like anywhere else, you want to keep your head about you, head on a swivel, keep aware of your surroundings. They may even have meetups on the ship that aren't geared towards meeting your significant other or something. It might just be a meetup like, oh, hey, we're two solo travelers. Let's go on this excursion together. Or we're going to meet up and go to a coffee shop in port or something like that. But another option is there are tour companies that you can make your travel arrangements through, and it will be a tour group, and you will meet up with the group. It could be other solo travelers, or it could be families or couples, and depending on your comfort level, it's honestly a great option. When I was in my 20s, I really wanted to go to Greece and Turkey. None of my friends had enough money. None of them could take time off of work. I had just been laid off of my job, but I knew the layoff was coming. So I planned my trip about a year in advance. I found a travel company that offered a group tour. And what I did is go from the United States. I was traveling solo, and then I landed in Athens. I have, it's I'm jumping around, but so I went to a travel agent. I got all my paperwork. I signed up for the group tour, and I got all the instructions. You're going to meet this transfer company at the airport in Athens. They're going to take you to the hotel. This is the hotel. You're going to meet your group the first night at 5 p.m. You're going to meet everybody. You're going to get instructions on the next morning, what is happening the next morning. And then the next morning would be when we actually started our tour as a group. So you also have the option to add time on the front or the back of that journey. So if you wanted more time in one place, the beginning of the group tour, you can do that. So what happened then is I was totally comfortable arriving. Well, let's not say totally comfortable. This was my first international trip, and I was normal level of nervous traveling there, meeting up with the group, meeting a bunch of strangers, being in a strange country, but I wasn't so nervous that I holed up in the hotel. I was like so excited. I checked in at the hotel, got all my stuff situated, and then, familiarized myself with my room. And then I had a map, a paper map, and I walked from the hotel to the Plaza, which is like a shopping center, a big plaza. At that time, I didn't even know what I was doing. I like was taking it all in. I was super excited. It was old school film, taking photographs and all that stuff, and it was amazing. So now let's get to the solo travel in a group tour setting. When you're shopping for a group tour, a lot of people might not realize there are different opportunities. I opted for one that had a little bit of history and museums. I mean, you're in Athens, Greece, so you have to, take advantage. And then also some downtime. And by downtime, I mean it's called On Your Own. And so the group tour will spell out exactly how many meals you're going to have together, how many meals are included, what meals those are, what amenities are at each hotel, and then it will also tell you where and when you are meeting with your group, where you're going, if those tickets for the museum or presentation are included. And then they also typically have options that you can add on. So I feel like this is a great way for a solo traveler to go, or maybe a couple or a family that doesn't want to plan the whole thing on their own. Is the price going to be a little bit more? Sure, because you have the group that has done all the planning, organization obtaining the tickets, they typically have a guide, and again, that will be included in your information, is the guide. um, uh, what the heck do you call it? Kind of like a docent that travels along with you. And so that person or persons, our group had one person. So she traveled with us through the whole journey. I believe it was 14 days. And so she was the one that would say, okay, now we're going to be coming up to this museum, and at the museum we're going to meet so and so, and he is going to take us around the museum and show us the exhibits, blah, blah, blah. Very, very well organized, and I loved the experience. So, also with group travel, and I'm calling it group, but this is a great opportunity for solo travelers who truly don't want to just hop on a plane and go solo on their own. They want somebody that kind of has the framework. They can meet up with this person and then have somebody that's touring them around and kind of giving them the lay of the land. I feel like it's a great way to get your feet wet if this is something you want to explore, but you're not like super brave to just go for it. And then after that initial trip, you might have more of a comfort level and then venture out on your own. So you can also pick your pace of the tour. There are some that have something happening every single day. There are some that have a day on, a day off. So you might be touring one day and have on your own the next day, which I think those are great options too, because in a group, you're going to be traveling at a certain pace. You're not going to be able to stop and go to the cute little coffee shop or grab a pastry, or sometimes that's included but not at the pace that you might like. So group tours is a great opportunity for solo travelers. Now, one thing that is always a question is it safe? Solo travel in general. There definitely are some places you do not want to travel solo, and then what what are those concerns? What is your race? What is your ethnicity? What is your gender? What There's so many different things. Like in America, we still have concerns like that, but you want to research your destination to know how is it for a person like me, a woman, an older woman, a younger man, an older man, LGBTQ, any different race or ethnicity. So uh, that's what I would say about solo travel in a group, or solo travel to destinations truly on your own. Do your research of your destination. There are so many different resources online. And then also take the government websites with a grain of salt, while also taking in information on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, different social media of people who have actually been there. Everybody has a different style of travel, everybody has a different style of behavior. So sometimes people's style of travel or style of behavior might cause them to get into harm's way more often. If you're a person that's really boisterous in the United States, that might not translate very well in another country. So that's something to also be mindful of. Um, so I think that's what I would wrap up about solo travel. Hold, please. My dog needs to go in. Very urgent. So I think pets are like small children. As soon as it looks like you're doing something on your own, everything is urgent. They need to come in, go out, whatever. Okay, so let's see, what are we going to talk about next? Destinations in general. Research your destination for the seasons, the crowd control, kind of. We used to have to travel during school breaks. Well, that's literally a nightmare because everybody has to travel during school breaks. One thing that worked out really good for us We were traveling to Walt Disney World. That was a big expense, big trip. We stayed for, I think, about 11 days because we wanted to have the time at the parks, all the water parks, Walt Disney World, all of that. So we researched when do the schools in the area go back into session. And we were able to travel at the end of August. Now, this was 2011, I think, so it's been a while, but we were able to travel at the end of August, which made for lighter crowds in the parks. One thing else I will say is be prepared for different types of weather. Excuse me, not just in Walt Disney World, Florida, but at your destination. So the talking points I have here is your destination, research the location, currency, safety, solo travel, transportation to at the destination. Are you going to arrange transfers from the airport to the hotel or to your Airbnb, to your youth hostel, whatever? How traveler friendly is the destination? What are the distances between the airport to the lodging? Can you walk? Can you take a train? Do they have Uber? And you might say, oh, everywhere you go has Uber. Well, I was surprised to learn, and it made sense once I thought about it, that in Alaska, they don't really have Uber or Lyft or type of ride share like that. It's very common for people to use a service called Turo, Turo. And let me write that down. I'll put it in the show notes. And Turo has actually worked out very well for many travelers, even people on cruise ships. So, what that is, it is private citizens who are renting out their car to you as a visitor. There's an app for it. You make arrangements in the app. It shows you the car. It tells you about the owner of the car. It tells you availability. What's going to happen when you're picking up the car. Typically, the car will be parked at the spot where you're going to pick up. There's specific instructions from the person that's renting you the car. You go pick up the car and off you go. And I have heard many, many people that have used that service, and it's very, very successful for them. Again, as always, you're the traveler. You want to research and make sure that you are aware of the expectations and make the most of your experience by knowing the details of each, like transaction with Turo or any other travel company. So let's see. Also, what are the amenities at your hotel or your vacation rental? So sometimes you might pay $5 more per night, $10 more per night, or more at that rental, but it includes a breakfast, or it includes a washer and dryer, or free shuttle, or, so weigh your pros and cons. There have been times when we opted for a hotel that was $20 or $25 more because it included breakfast. Well, when you're traveling with small children and you factor in the cost of a meal, especially here in Southern California, that's going to be $10, $15 at least per person, even the children. So if you're paying $20 more at your vacation rental or hotel than another when you're doing price comparison, and it includes breakfast, you typically can have the family sleeping in. Now, I'm speaking from my own experience. You can have the family sleeping in while you go down to the breakfast room, grab your coffee, grab some Danishes, take it back to the room. As the rest of the family starts waking up, they can have a little nibble while they get ready, and it makes for a more pleasant, relaxed experience. And then also in the long run, it saves you time and money. So check out the amenities. What are the amenities that are going to make that hotel more appealing? Hotel, Airbnb, more appealing. Read the reviews, look at the photographs, look at the location. You don't want to end up with the most budget friendly lodging, but it's in an area that you don't feel safe. Now, it doesn't mean that every budget lodging is in an area that's not safe, because I've certainly stayed at some places that were definitely a hidden gem, great pricing, Great amenities, great location. They just hadn't been discovered yet. And I try not to, well, I talk about everything, but I try not to give away my secret gems. Inevitably, I always end up doing it, but okay, now let's talk about travel time. So let's say you are going to go on a cruise. Your cruise is leaving on the 15th. Your boarding time is at 11 o'clock. Your ship is leaving the dock at 4. So you think, oh, I can fly in the morning at 9 o'clock. Perfect. The airport's right there. I have 2 hours to land and get to the ship. And that's a huge time window. Okay, so I'm landing at 9. I get to the baggage claim. I get to the ship. Even if you miss your boarding time by an hour, not a big deal, because let's say you don't board until 12, ship still isn't leaving until 4. But what you do not have control over is that airline. Now, this is 2025 when I'm making this video, or when I'm doing this live with you guys. So, there's been a lot of crazy stuff happening with the airlines, whether it's weather related, mechanical issues, delay of one plane getting to one airport so that you could take it to your destination. I would always advise that, especially especially if you have a time crunch and you need to be on a ship, a ferry, some sort of connector, leave some buffer time. For a cruise, fly in the day before. Now, I've seen plenty of disaster stories where people are running through the airport and they still don't make it. Their flight is delayed, delayed, delayed. They still don't make it. They barely make it. But do you really want that stress when you're trying to get to your destination and enjoy travel? Um, so research your travel time, make note of different time zones and such. You want to uh, check out the city you're arriving at, where you will be getting onto the cruise ship. Maybe your hotel costs you $200 or $300 more, or costs you $200 or $300 to stay over, and you're close to the port. You walk across, or you walk a few blocks, and you're right there. Explore the city the day before. Have a nice dinner. Get your vacation started early. We were fortunate enough, we did travel to Alaska. That was our first Alaskan cruise. We took the Norwegian Bliss, which the ship was amazing, the cruise was amazing. There were shortcomings with the port times and all that. That's another video. But we arrived a couple days early. We were a little bit wary, not scared, but just kind of like, what are we going to see? Because what you see on the news. Well, what you see on the news about Seattle being, at that time, unsafe, dirty, people getting attacked, whatever. None of that happened. We arrived. We took an Uber from the airport down to the waterfront. We stayed near the waterfront. We explored around the waterfront. It was amazing. We were there 2 days prior to our cruise. It was amazing. So even if you're arriving in a smaller town, which isn't going to happen if you're trying to get on a cruise, research the area. Check out different places you can go. And if you're going to be arriving later than expected, so if you're getting a hotel, you're going to be arriving later than expected, call the hotel. Hey, I'm still coming. I'm on my flight. I'm catching my flight. I'm still coming. We're going to be there later. Because I've had incidences where the room was booked and paid for, and they released it and gave it to somebody else. Now that happened in Las Vegas, but still, live and learn. Even if we're driving to a location, typically now hotel check-in times are around 3 or 4 p.m. But if we're driving to a destination and we're going to be later than 5 or 6, I will call ahead and say, hey, we're on our way. We aren't skipping the stay. We are going to be staying there. We're just doing a few more things. We'll be there later. We'll be there. consider me checked in. I think sometimes too you can check in on the app. So think of all that too. Let's see. Travel insurance, we did that. Um, oh, another thing. If you have credit cards and you're going to be paying for your trip with your credit cards, research travel insurance, travel coverage, travel, whatever they call it. There's different terminology that they call it, um, that might be related to your credit cards. What does it cover? What's required for it to be covered? And what is the claims process? So research all that, because you, I, I don't know that you could be quote double covered. So if you have travel insurance and you make a claim with your travel insurance, I don't think you could also make a claim with your credit card. But be in the know about that. One might offer better coverage for lost or delayed luggage, so you could make a claim on that with, say, the insurance, and then the other might have better coverage on travel delay, air missed flight or something like that. So research travel insurance through the credit card, and that typically is something that is included as an amenity to the credit card. So if that's a benefit you have, you may as well research and in the end save yourself money, so you can balance between credit card coverage and an actual travel insurance policy. Again, i don't I have not researched that on my own for my own credit cards, so I don't know how that works, or if it's included, or how you would determine, like, oh, typically if you have a higher annual fee, then it includes travel insurance. But if you have an annual fee, you may as well research and see and take advantage of the amenities that you have with that credit card. Destinations. Okay, let's talk about passports. So a lot of people in the US, I think I read the statistic was about 50%. 50% of people in the US do not have passports. So it's easy for me to say, oh, just get a passport. But it can be a big expense, especially if you're trying to get it for the whole family. But another thing that's nice is typically kids don't have identification prior to when they get their driver's license. So for my kids, they started driving later than usual. They didn't start driving when they were 15 or 16. So since we were going to be traveling, I had already gotten them passports. And there had been situations where they needed to bring an identification. And so we were thinking, well, what are you going to use for identification? Oh, yeah, your passport. So for kids under 16, the passport is good for 5 years. And for adults, it's good for 10 years. So when you think about that cost, if you're able to break it up for your initial investment, and you think about the averaging the cost of the passport over the number of years, it breaks down to maybe $2 a week. And I didn't do the specific math for the children versus the adults, but it's really, it is an investment, and I recognize that it could be a hardship for families to do that, but it is a good investment, I would say, and a great way to have identification for your kids before they get their driver's license or state identification. Then, with the implementation of the need for the real ID, if you have a passport, that's pretty much your carte blanche. You can fly, you can cruise, you can go on a train or whatever. Um, so let's see what to talk about. Oh, and then also with regard to passport, you want to be aware of your expiration dates. Some destinations require that your passport is valid for at least 6 months from the end of your travel date. So if you are leaving that destination on the 20th, your passport, say 20th of October, your passport would need to be good for, sorry, I thought I saw a lizard, for at least 6 months after October 20th. So you don't want to arrive at the destination and then you find out the passport is no good. Then, so let's say, I'm going back to the investment part of getting a passport. Let's say you don't travel a lot and you um, say, well, I'm not going to travel a lot. The process of renewing after you have the initial passport is so much easier, especially with children, because with children, you need to have a letter of permission or both parents present when you get the passport. And then that is so that both parents are acknowledging and aware that this child now has a passport where they could leave the country. And so it's basically in the case of child custody, I would imagine that both parents are aware. So there's that factor. But with renewing your passport after the initial one is issued, it's a lot easier. So let's say it's 2020 and you're saying, well, I'm not going to be traveling, and aside from any kind of pandemics and stuff that are happening, I'm not going to be traveling. Well, your passport is good for 10 years. So even if you just use it for an identification, you have an identification that's solid for 10 years or 9.5 until you have to renew. So if you can get a passport and you can plan trips within that 10 years, sometimes it's unpredictable. You might say, oh, wow, this opportunity came up. I wish I would have gotten a passport. So I get that it's a big investment and it can be a hardship to do that. But with a little bit of planning, you might be able to do that and be prepared in case you manifest an international trip and then you have your passport ready. And then I also passed over my kids' passports to them. We renewed right before, I think, right before they turned 16. So they would have 5 years and, or maybe right at 16. So they're good for 10 years. And I give them a heads up, okay, you're responsible for the renewal. So if you do that, then it's going to be easier going forward. You're already registered and all that. So passports. When you're going on a cruise, many people say like, well, do I have to have a passport? Do I have to have a passport? Now, today, current day, you do not have to have a passport if you are going on a closed loop cruise. Doesn't matter how many ports you're visiting or where those ports are, you're traveling from the US and back to the US. That is considered closed loop. Now, again, you want to research and be aware of the requirements and restrictions at the time of your travel. So, closed loop cruise, you do not need a passport if you are leaving from the US and returning to the US. The tricky part is if you are visiting ports that are not in the US and you need to be evacuated and you do not have a passport or a real ID, you may not be able to fly. So that is where the peace of mind comes in, that you have a passport, you have what you need to be evacuated, whether it's a medical emergency or something's happening in the country that you're visiting. And that's the thing, medical emergencies can be unpredictable, obviously. We were on a group cruise to Alaska. One of the people in our group had a severe medical emergency. They had to be evacuated from the ship while we were in Alaska. They were in the US, but you need a passport or real ID to fly. So thank goodness she had her proper travel documentation. She was treated at the hospital, and then when she was stable, she was transported to a hospital closer to her home, but she had to fly and had travel insurance. So she not only had her documentation for flying, but she also had her travel insurance to cover those expenses. And by the way, the cruise ship took excellent care of her. Thank you, Norwegian Cruise Lines. So, open loop, let's see. Ah, open loop versus closed loop, because I said if you're leaving from the US and returning to the US, but it's leaving from one port and returning to the same port, that's closed loop. If you're leaving from one port and returning to a different port, that is open loop. And this is just terminology for differentiation. Um, but again, know the requirements no matter what your mode of transportation is. What are the travel document requirements where you're going? Now, recently there has been some information about a need for measles vaccination. I forget which country, uh, Roatan, Bahamas, I'm not sure, Caribbean, but make sure what is required in the country you're going to. Typically, your travel agent will be able to advise you, they will be able to assist you, and they will be able to give you a heads up on what is needed for visa, immunization, travel documentation, tickets, print out your tickets, or whatever. But bottom line, ultimately, the responsibility is on the traveler. So your travel agent will do their best to help you. They always want to do their best. But if there's a shortcoming with that, it could be that things change even as you're on your journey. So it's kind of like sending your kid off to school. Your kid is going off to school. Everything is perfect. You've made their lunch. You've made sure they have their backpack. They have their jacket. They have everything. And as they're going to school, the lunch bag breaks and something falls out, and so there's a catastrophe happening mid trip. Things can happen. So be aware and do a quick Google search. Check the date and the date stamps on the information you're looking at. See if it's relevant. The government websites are going to be a little bit more restrictive and cautious, so they may have something that's saying like, oh, this is a red zone travel, do not go there, but you have people that are on the ground going there and they're like, yeah, nothing's happening. It just, be wary, be aware, be a smart traveler, be safe. I'm not saying ignore government directives, but be aware, be safe. Let's see. Know the customs and such of the places that you are visiting. There, I know Americans love to tip. They love to give gratuities. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are some countries where it is an insult for you to give a tip, because the people that are in that country, they know what their job is. They know what is expected of them, and they take pride in doing their job and doing it well, and they're not doing it to get a gratuity. Be aware of the customs in the places that you're visiting with regard to gratuities, manners, and usual and customary behaviors. So here's something interesting. If you have been to Europe or stayed in countries that are older than America, which is every place except America, you may find that they advise you do not put the toilet tissue in the toilet. They have a trash receptacle in the restroom. So you should put the toilet tissue in the trash receptacle, because the plumbing and the pipes are literally so old that they cannot handle the toilet tissue. So be aware of what is usual and customary in the destinations that you are visiting. You don't want to be that ugly, boisterous visitor, tourist that is expecting that country to do as you are accustomed to, because you're a visitor. You want to be a great visitor and you want to represent yourself and where you're coming from in a positive light. You don't want to be that person that they don't want to welcome back into their country. So be aware of what is usual and customary in the places that you're visiting. So let's go back to gratuities. One question that is very common with the cruise community and people who are cruising: do you pay, or do you keep your included gratuities? Because typically the cruise line will automatically add, oh, excuse me, add that onto your fare. So whether you pay it ahead of time or they add it on as you're cruising, it is automatic. Some people like to go to guest services and have their gratuities removed, not for the purpose of not paying them, but I believe it is for the purpose of reallocating them. They would rather pay a cash tip to the people that are assisting them than to have the pool of tips automatically paid and then dispersed as the cruise line sees fit. So, for example, you have your server at your table for dinner, breakfast, lunch, but that server may not get majority of that gratuity. That may go to the dining room manager or the maitre d' or somebody that is less directly involved with you. Are they managing the behind the scenes? Yes. Are they making sure everything runs smoothly? Yes. But they are not the person that is directly bringing you your meal, your drinks, your, providing the direct service. So if you prefer to disperse your gratuities personally, directly to the bartender, directly to your server, directly to your room attendant, there's nothing wrong with that. Um, but don't just take the gratuities off and pay no gratuities. That I think, especially with cruising, it's expected that you will pay a gratuity of some sort. And honestly, the people on these cruise ships, they work hard 24/7 to make sure your experience is nothing but amazing. And then if you are paying the gratuities directly to the service provider, your server, your room attendant, then that is a reflection to them of the type of service they've been providing to you. So, um, gratuities are definitely a personal issue with cruises. It's expected that you're going to pay some sort of gratuity. They definitely are very personal. Some people automatically pay 20%, 25%. They might go higher than that if they find that they've had even way above and beyond service, and that's totally fine. So it's important not to shame other people for how much they determine they would like to pay for their gratuities. Just it, keep it as a personal preference. Every single person, even between myself and my husband or myself and my kids, everybody, and my kids are adults, young adults, every person has a different monetary mindset of what that service provided was worth to them. Did you get a towel animal on your cruise every day and that means a lot to you? Okay, maybe you're going to give more gratuities. Maybe another room says, well, I got a towel animal every day, but he didn't bring me any ice. So then their level of service is perceived differently. So each person's perception and payment of gratuities is going to be different. So just respect everybody. Just make sure that you um, do some sort of gratuity, just out of kindness and recognition that they're working hard. And this is specific to cruise ships. Now, when you're visiting other countries, there are countries they do not expect a tip, they don't want a tip, and no matter how much your mind tells you, but they gave me great service, it could be considered an insult. So know what is usual and customary in the countries that you are visiting. All right, so regarding, so for closing out, let me give you a few more tips for your travel insurance. There are several websites that you can just do a Google search or a DuckDuckGo search or whichever search engine you like to use, and you can do a comparison of different companies, different prices, different offerings, and see, like, compare apples to apples, apples to oranges, and level out what are they offering, what is the cost, what is the claim process, what are the caps on the coverage, the claim amount, and all that. So you make sure, oh, Jim Bob's insurance requires me to jump through 25 circus hoops and it's super cheap, but will I ever get my claim paid? Or this other company, Sally Sue, they will look at my documentation and they're more reasonable for settling a claim. So just look at all the factors. And oh, I'm hearing a honk or something. So look at all the factors when you're shopping. There's a few websites that will offer that for you. And then when you're looking for your travel insurance, there are several different spots where you can put in the different components of your trip. And by that, I mean what you paid for your airfare, what you paid for your I said airfare, but it could be other transportation, car rental, train, transfers from the airport to your hotel. So you're going to put your airfare or your transportation costs, your actual tickets for your vacation. Let's say it's a cruise, any extra excursions, any additional transportation you need, any other entertainment tickets or excursions that you need off of the ship or wherever you're, just make sure you're including all the different expenses so that when you price out the cost of your travel insurance, you're looking at the whole picture. So I have even overestimated and maybe purchased insurance that was more than what I needed, but keep in mind your claim will be what is paid on, not what you say in the beginning when you're shopping for your insurance. So just know that you can do price comparison and then get the policy that fits for the type of trip that you're doing. And then the credit cards. So some information that I got off the internet was that there are resources like NerdWallet that will offer card comparisons, and some of the factors that you can think of with the cards. Go to the website when you find the specific card, read the fine print, research that and the fine print. Will the card cover the coverage that you're looking for? Is there a gap that the travel insurance could cover? So let's say you're researching your credit card, everything looks great except they're not paying for, I don't know, lost baggage. And then you realize, okay, well, I can get a travel insurance policy that will cover. My chicken is over here squawking. I don't know what she's doing. Um, get a policy that's going to cover your lost baggage. Is the card considered a travel card because it will give you more points for travel related expenses, hotel, airlines, cruise vacations, or does it also include the travel insurances? So look at the whole picture. Sometimes you're just earning points back, sometimes it includes the travel insurance. So I think that's it. And then also with your passport, when you're looking at your passport application, they offer the booklet and the card. I opt to get both because I can carry the little card in my wallet. They do not have the same I want to say, function. There are restrictions of what you can do with the passport card versus the passport book. Um, do, do, do. Okay, so here's just a little overview, and again, you want to make sure what is the most current information. U.S. passport book is good for international travel by sea, air, or land. U.S. passport card is valid for land and sea entry from Canada, Mexico, Caribbean, and Bermuda. Not valid for international travel by air. So those are just the two high point comparisons. And again, always do your research. Um, and if you are using a travel agent, you still want to do your research, but make sure you let your travel agent know, hey, I'm not comfortable researching this. Can you help me with the specifics of this country or that country? Or, have that conversation. I have seen situations where it might be something you wouldn't discuss with your travel agent, and it ends up to be a little bit of a sticky situation. This would be specific to a cruise. Let's say you're working with a travel agent. Your travel agent books your cruise. You go on your cruise and you end up in a bit of a situation because you have a warrant for your arrest in a country. That's discovered, and then you're apprehended on the ship. Yes, that can happen. Another thing is, I heard of a nightmare situation where there was a group traveling. The travel agent booked everything for the group. Somebody in the group had a huge fight and was taken off the ship, and they were expecting the travel agent to fix that. Well, the travel agent can't fix that. You need to be mindful of your behavior and your the way you carry yourself in other countries, and be a good citizen no matter where you go. Using a travel agent isn't a substitute for behaving. I don't know how to say it, but anyways, let's wrap that up. I am a travel agent. I can help you with your booking, and I have traveled internationally to a limited extent. I have taken cruises. I have studied a lot of different cruise aspects, travel aspects, and I can definitely help you research your destination, expectation, what fits for your family, your age groups, your orientations, and all that, so that we can get a trip that is comfortable for you and a great investment for your money. And I hope you have enjoyed this presentation or replay, however you are watching it. And thank you so much for your time. Have a great day. Let's see. Have a great day.